Hey, this is More Than Velocity. I'm Bart Pear here with Ryan Croton and Jordan Osagara, and today we are talking with USA Prime Tommy Weaver over there. Tommy's been using the Arm Care app in a number of aspects, and we just wanted to sit down and kind of talk with him about what he's doing over there and get into lots of different things. So Tommy, why don't you first kind of set up where you are with USA Prime, what's your role, and then we can get into the Arm Care stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm super excited. So USA Prime Virginia is where I'm at, and I am the director of player development for them. Our director is Travis Knight, and we kind of run out of Central Virginia, the travel ball organization there. We've got kids all the way from Harrisonburg area where JMU is at, all the way down to close to Lexington and Lynchburg, like Radford area, and then all the way up here to UVA. And we're starting to get into the market a little bit, even east of that too. So it's starting to grow. We're really excited for the growth and the development that we're kind of seeing. We're really excited about the future for that. So it's been fun.
Very cool, very cool. And so, I went to Virginia Tech, so I kind of know a little bit of the area that you're in, but just had to throw that out there. So when did you first see Arm Care? When did it spot your, when did you have some interest in it?
So there's a lot of things out there, right? So everybody's got, their kind of their own systems and their own, per se, like routes that they want to take. So I was doing some research through, I've always been a user of J-bands when I was younger and didn't even know, most of the things existed out there. So I started using J-bands. You've got Driveline, you've got, Top Velocity, and I started doing some research and I loved armcare.com. Like I fell in love with the product instantly just because of, I'm an analytical guy. And so I like numbers, I like proof, I like things that I can kind of used as a results driven thing. And I think a lot of kids are motivated to do the same thing. So after seeing that, emailed Jordan and started moving forward with that and see how we can implement it into, the organization itself. Is that, outside of everything, like kids want to get better and kids want to develop, but a lot of times that route isn't very narrow. It's very broad, right? You can go do 100 different things. And so during COVID and some other things that we started, I created my own app outside of that, like a fitness app for kids to be able to do stuff at home. Like, instead of having to go to the gym and use equipment, you can use a chair and do rows and just some interesting things, push-ups and squats and things. And so I wanted to get into the throwing part of it too, because, we talk about mechanics of pitching is one piece of the puzzle, right? There's probably 8, 9, 10 things that are important. And armcare.com and what I did the research on with that is like, you all kind of focused on like, listen, like sleep is important too. Diet's important, stretching, and then the analytics that are all behind it too. I fell in love with the transparency that created, and then just decided to go forward with that. And now implementing into the organization, getting some kids on, and I think I'm really excited to see where they go and how they develop, because a lot of kids, the arm scores are really good, analytical piece that says, hey, here's where you are, here's what we do, here's the plan of attack. Let's go ahead and follow this plan. Let's do this and see where you are in a month. Let's test you again. And it kind of just, it shows that and shows the results. When a kid sees himself go from 75 miles an hour to 80, well, there's nothing more motivating than Velo, right? But if you throw 80 for 2 innings, how good are you to your team? So we kind of moved forward with that, be like, hey, no, I want you throwing 80 for 6 innings. I want you being that role mentality where you can throw and really, go deep into the game a little bit more, because throwing hard's great, but you got to be healthy behind it too. You got to be sleeping, you got to be eating, you got to be reducing inflammation in your body, things of that nature, so that everything kind of came full circle with Arm Care showing that and believing in that as well.
No, for sure. I think you made some good points on, getting those velocity gains is great, but there's so many people that want to look at it on the surface level and just go, hey, we added your max velo by 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour. And I remember we had a discussion about this. I think it was me, Ryan, and Bart, early on when we were doing the podcast, we were filming some stuff. And I was talking about, I like to assess on average velo, not necessarily max. I pay attention to max, but average is more important to me. What are you doing over the course of that outing? Did you hit that new PR once, or did you keep sustaining that good velocity throughout that? And you were talking about how, more than 2 innings. Do you have any success stories with some of your guys who are starting to maintain velo, or are you not quite into that season yet? I know we're right now, what is it, December 2nd, December 3rd? I'm not a calendar guy. But it's, we're early December. Are you guys playing games yet? Or are you seeing any kind of better outcomes with some of those pitchers yet?
So now with pitchers on the testing side, we've got, I just got all the first tests done through the organization for some kids that wanted to sign up and get to that early. I built a winter program for them to kind of work in like the throwing program, strength, stretching, dynamic warm up, all that good stuff. And then also where they log into the armcare.com app and go in and do their block strength, their IR strength, whatever it may be. Because, obviously, like, some kids are more IR dominant versus ER dominant, and,
Yep.
not just the strength, but also the flexibility. So there's a lot of key metrics in there that are building the same way. And we're starting to see some things that obviously come through where, I'm hopeful that the kids in 2 months, when we get them ramped up and they're fully into the system, they're into the throwing program, throwing bullpens, all the way from kids at travel ball age at 13, 14, 15 years old, all the way to the kids that are going to be playing spring with their high school, where when they walk in, they're ready to go. Not that, tryouts is their first day of throwing a bullpen, but they've been throwing bullpens for 3 or 4 weeks. They've been working on pitching mechanics and arm strength and setting up a pre-pitch, during pitch, and then post-pitching regiment for themselves. I think those things are really important. And I think that, a lot of kids in high school I think they want to do that. And I know a lot of kids want to do that. They just don't know what to do. And implementing that before the season, I think they walk in with a lot more confidence. And I think confidence is key when you go and, you put the work in before. The difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is walking in thinking you're better than everybody without the work. Confidence is walking in knowing you deserve the best because you put the work in behind it. And I think that's a huge benefit for the guys.
Yeah, and just off the top of my head there, it reminds me of the aspect of what kind of breeds that confidence is consistency and structure. And
Exactly.
One thing I'll say for all the travel organizations, I think you guys may be one of the gold standards for putting out structure, because I'm not going to show them because I know they're kind of proprietary to you guys, but your guys' practice schedules are boom, boom. They're better run than a lot of, major league spring trainings from what I've seen. They're like, boom, boom, boom. It's just very well regimented. It's very well put together. There's specific things where they're going to do their specific work. It's very well put together. So if you don't mind going over, because it's going to help out a lot of the parents out there that are listening that, may not have access to a travel team. They only get to play during their regular seasons, whatever it may be. How did you go about kind of creating that practice structure? What are some of the trial and errors that you figured out worked and didn't work, and how you folded arm care in there? Because you have a very tight schedule. And then all of a sudden you're like, now we're going to add in arm care, which takes up more time. What were some of the hurdles, and kind of how did you go about addressing those?
So our biggest thing is, like, when you put out a practice plan, it gives an expectation for the kids when they show up. They know what group they're in. They know the rotations. The first practice is always, kind of herding cats and getting them used to that regiment there. And then once we move forward after a couple of practices, everybody kind of gets in the flow. I think that really sets up, like, we have practice uniforms that we wear. Everybody wants to dress the exact same way. We look like a team. We look uniform. And when you show up, you know what you're going to do. You walk in dynamic warm up, and then we're going to move into getting armcare.com, implementing into that practice plan. So it's part of the warm up, and then also some of the testing structures where we'll start to test metrics, say once a week with each group to make sure that they're progressing and showing those numbers as well. We really think that, like, we believe that, like, development is kind of behind a regiment, right? So when you go into practice and you know what to expect, there's a plan and you execute that plan. And I think that's really important, not just in baseball, but also in life too, because let's be honest, like, a lot of kids aren't going to make it to the next level. And that's just the reality of how hard it is to get to that next level and play. And so not only do you want to be good at baseball, or you want to be good at, at whatever you are, your infield skill, your pitching, hitting, whatever it may be, that implements things that, like, will take you further than baseball. When you have a plan, you execute a plan, you get something done that day, that's what you have. And so I think just in life in general, I think it transitions over to that to set our guys up for success, not just through baseball, because let's be honest, all the careers are going to end eventually, right? And, maximum you're playing to your upper 30s, and that's wild to hear, And so the guys that have their, maybe it goes to college, maybe they get drafted. Whenever that career ends, not just are they, like, built for baseball players and that, but I want them good for life too. Like, when how often, in what other scenarios can you fail 7 out of 10 times and be a Hall of Famer, right? I mean, it's unheard of numbers. So the fact that you can handle failure, I think this game teaches that. And I think it really implements outside of baseball, just a life in general thing of, we set a plan up, we're going to execute that plan that day. And that's the expectation. And so, I think it forms over into our guys, knowing what to expect when they show up. Our coaches hold them accountable. We also hold ourselves and each other accountable, which is huge, because our coaching staff is, like, one of the best that I've ever worked with. I love our guys. We have a lot of guys that are just really implemented into it. Like, they really care. I think not just one facet of, like, some guys are better at, hitting, and then some guys are better at pitching. We all have that and we collaborate. But then at the end of the day, like there's also recruiting, there's also grades. There's a lot of things that go also to get to that next level. And all of our coaches in our organization really hold that tight as far as like, you can't care too much. Like there's nothing that's too small to not care about in this game, and what we care for our kids and the development of them in general. And I think that's important. Back to the practice plan thing and how we kind of have built and made that better as it goes. It's just, sticking to that plan and knowing the times. We have a dynamic warm up that we go through, and then we go into EDDs, which is your everyday drills. And it's really cool to see that, we'll do EDD drills, and then the guys will go to the showcase camp and they want to see, how good their hands are. Well, we do the 21s, right? So it's 7 up the middle, 7 forehand, 7 backhands, all bare hand, with your partner back and forth. And then they go to these showcase camps and they're like, all right, guys, we're going to do these warm-up drills. We're going to do this infield drill. And our guys are like, oh, okay, cool. They go to the group and they see it's like what we did in practice every day. So those guys are super confident doing it, and really excelling at it. And the coaches in the organization, or, in the showcase place that are looking for them to recruit, they're like, man, that kid's really smooth. Well, it's because he's practiced it 100 times at practice, so that's what it kind of shows nowadays, that like we try to do something at practice that implements what's going to be at the next level, and set that expectation early and then follow that plan to a T. And we really take a lot of pride in our practices, because
real quick on that brings my thought up of, Joe Madden. Me and Ryan had him as a manager for a little bit of time with the Angels, and his foundation was do basic better. It's like, if you do basics better, you're going to be better than the guys you're playing against, because whether it's, running a ball down in the gap, it's still the basics. You have to do the basics better, and that's what makes you an elite player. And when your players go to these showcases and they stand out doing basic, your everyday drills that you call them, that's just basics, and you're learning how to do those basics better and excel at those things. And that's where it all funnels into that. I can't emphasize enough I don't want to say it's rigid, but the structure and the scaffolding of that practice plan is all about doing basics a little better each day. And you might do it a little bit differently, where one day you're doing the 21s and there's probably some other drills you throw in there, but they're all a foundation of basics. And how do we keep building upon that and adding complexity to basic to make it a more rounded athlete, if that makes any sense?
Exactly. Yep. 1% every day.
I just want to jump in. I love the conversation we're having, especially when you talk about the basics better, because we have this course coming out, which is going to be amazing, the Certified Pitching Biomechanics course. And the first thing that, I'm mentioning in this course is simplify. It's simplify, individualize, optimize. And it sounds like, you have a good process. I loved, I want to also double back on the foundations of having those things set comes from preparation and a plan. And, you kind of skirted on it, but I want to dive a little bit deeper as far as how important that is and why armcare.com fits in this and is incredibly impactful to not only on-field performance, but injury protection. But Jordan and I can attest that in 2020, right, Jordan, we sat with every single pitcher at spring training, and we gave them about 20 minutes to a half hour to lay out their entire preparation plan, okay, at the big league level. And a lot of people would be amazed, and Jordan could attest to this too, of how many deficits and holes there were into getting their bodies ready. And that was kind of like the first window into me thinking, well, hey, pitching injuries are caused by pitching. And what's the last thing that they do before they pitch? And that comes with their activation process, and it sounds like, you're using our product really well. We call it potentiation. You could say priming, but getting the arm not only analyzed, but also prepared to do battle, which is awesome. For our listeners, I can't hammer that enough, that we got to do this. We have to have a process, and we do it pretty simply. I mean, it's on app where, if you don't have someone that's as specialized as, the folks we're talking to today, but they're going to be handheld, and we need to get that happening for our players to really impact performance and health in the game.
Yeah, to me, when you're talking about setting up that structure and doing those things, I mean, these kids travel ball, they all have aspirations to do something with, whether they're going gonna or not. And the fact that you're like, hey, these kids may not go on to the next level, but at least they've seen what high performance discipline looks like. And they may have the desire and the discipline if they've never seen it. And it's very difficult then to go out on your own, which could be the next step, that you've got to do it yourself, once you become an adult and you're adulting, but you've never seen it actually applied. It's very difficult to create. So the fact that they're getting to see that, and hopefully it's putting them, setting them up for the next level. But if not, it's setting them up for whatever they end up doing as they move on past travel ball and anything else. So.
Yeah, and then I know, one of Ryan's things he always goes to is just the importance of Vanguard University. How he calls them the Ivy League of the West Coast. And, when I first started coaching there under Rob Pegg, the manager, I was like, how do we know if we're doing a good job as coaches? And he said, I'll tell you in about 10 or 15 years, we'll see where these kids end up in life, So that was kind of his motto, and just it keeps funneling. It's not just baseball. There's a lot of other things going on. But again, it comes into, like, Ryan was talking on arm health. There's a lot of guys, and I remember, why am I drawing a blank? The big, huge left-hander. We got him from Oakland, Ryan. It was in 2020. What was his name?
Ryan. Oh my gosh.
Now that I put you on the spot, you'll think of it in 10 minutes.
Bucky. Last name's Bucky.
Not Bucky. We'll add it in there. Bart, we'll do it like when they play Die Hard on regular TV. We'll just add it in, ad-lib it. But anyways, I remember sitting with him, and he's like, they would put these guys. It wasn't with Oakland, because Oakland doesn't do a whole lot of the weighted balls, but there was another organization. Buckner, Ryan Buckner.
There you go.
He's
a
but
great
he was
guy.
telling me, he's like, they're putting these kids in these weighted ball programs with one of the orgs he was with, and they're just thrashing arms up. And he's like, this kid's not getting to the big leagues, but they put him into this weighted ball program. They thrash his arm, and now he can't join the regular workforce. And he's like, I'm not okay. He's like, I just not okay with that, with certain things. And there's some groups that will do that just to see what happens, where it's like, well, we're going to put this guy's arm at risk. So even at that younger age, it's so important to maintain that, because you are keeping a big picture. Not everybody's going to be in the big leagues. Not everyone's going to play in college. Not everyone's going to want to play in high school, but maybe they want to go be an electrician. That requires a lot of shoulder work as you get older. And if you thrash it when you're 13 for the plastic trophy, there's other things going on. So it's way more than baseball. While we do look at everything through a baseball lens, we want high performance, we want consistency. It's refreshing to hear that there's travel orgs out there that are staying structured enough, caring about health, using dynamometry to make sure they're putting guys into positions of success. And you guys are one of the groups that is doing it. So that, that's why we want to get you on here and talk about kind of the cool stuff you guys are doing, because you're not just focused on baseball, you're focused on long-term success.
For sure. Yeah. And it's, the arm carry thing, it's really important. Like, we talk about regiments and everything as far as that goes. And then being the analytical people that are motivated by goals and stuff, where they see those things increase, but, they don't know how to increase them. When they do, it's just not on a plan. They've got to follow through with a plan. And that's, goes, our practice plan, the arm care app where they're logging in and seeing that stuff. And I love that it's regimented in such a checkbox way. I think it makes it super easy for everybody. And I love the way it's set up. I'm using it myself, so I'm excited to see the numbers go up. I have an arm score in the beginning, and then I saw an arm score now, and I'm excited to see that go up. I'm not going to say any numbers, but they're like awesome, and I'm super excited to kind of see where I'm at, because I'm 5 weeks ahead of my guys. I want to do everything, 4 or 5 weeks ahead, so that when they have questions, they can come back and ask those questions. And so it's like, oh, well, here's what I did when I did this, or here's your posture. And, there's videos that go with everything, which is like awesome, by the way, Jordan, the videos and stuff that's tied into it. And Ryan.
Thank Matt for that. I didn't do any of that.
The guy, the training guy. Yeah. So that was awesome. And everything's very like, here's how it's supposed to feel. Here's the muscles you want to feel. Here's your rotator cuff and your shoulder blades want to rotate around when you're doing like the bear hug and things of that nature. It's really cool to hear that. And then when the kids have questions, for me to also be doing it, I'm now getting into my weighted ball phase, because my arm score was high enough to do it. And now, I'm doing the pull-ups, the push-ups, and all of the prerequisites that we talked about in the class. And so, or in the certification, sorry. And so all of those prerequisites, I made sure I met them first. And I started doing the velo part of it, and staying ahead of those guys. And that way I can answer questions. I think, as much as anything, there's credibility in not only just telling somebody that you want them to do something, but also the fact that you're willing to do it yourself. I think that's huge, and it's good for those people to hear and trust that.
Yeah, leading by example. And real quick, I don't want to glaze over this. you know, you're in the process of building up as a pitcher. I keep getting texts like every 3 days from Ryan. How he's like, hey, I hit off the tee, took some front toss. Like, I'm making a comeback. Bart, how do we get a Tommy versus Ryan live BP session going? Like, we got to find a way to get this going on. I'll find a catcher for us. We got to find a way to make this happen.
Yeah, I think we got to get them in the same time zone at least. And then we can make that happen. But I got a question, Tom. So you were testing all of your guys, and you mentioned it a little earlier, but it seems like some of them were coming up IR dominant, some of them were ER dominant. So it wasn't all the same. And this is something that Ryan kind of hits on, is that, you know, a lot of the programs out there just assume that these kids coming in are going to be IR dominant and we've got to do certain things, but you were finding different stuff as you were testing these kids out, right?
Yeah. And it's that's what I loved about this as much as anything, was that it's not a one size fits all, which I really do like. And it's, you know, the bands are, you know, weighted for different, you know, age groups and things of that nature, instead of, you know, like I talked about, and I'm not here to go off anything, but I use J bands for my entire life, but it was one workout for one weighted, you know, one band weight the entire time. And then we talked about, you know, the grip strength, and Ryan, I love that class as much as anything. You know, I think the grip strength it increases like your shoulder activation by like 30% or something crazy like that, which was awesome because, you know, J bands have the open hands, and I've been doing that my entire life. And I never had arm problems, which was good. I'm blessed in that facet. But, you know, when we go to armcare.com stuff, you've got, you know, the difference in the weight, the grip, the posture, the movements, all of that stuff. You know, I had kids sweating just off the activation, and not just not the kids. I mean, to me in general as well, same, right? For the first 2 weeks, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is actually hard. If you do these right with the same posture, and, you know, tighten your diaphragm, your core, and keep everything, you know, locked in your heels, it actually is kind of hard. And I started to see a difference, and I was like, ooh, they started to get easier over time. I started seeing velo increases. I saw my arm score go up. All of my, you know, my post, my primer, all the numbers were going up in the right area. And so, you know, being a numbers guy, I love to see that. It was motivating to me to be 28 years old and be like, hey, you know, I'm still feeling pretty good, man. This was great. And it's put me in that area. So I'm planning on throwing bullpens and getting everything ready so that I'm doing a 90-day challenge. So I hate to put it out for 90 days to 90, but I've never thrown a fastball over 90 miles an hour. I topped out upper 80s when I was in college, and I want to get my body back at 20 years old. I feel like you got, you know, just a little bit of time left to maybe do it, and I feel really good. So I wanted to see how far I can take that, and I'm going to try to do the example for my guys and keep them motivated kind of with me, and hold them accountable, because I think that's fun, and they get to relate to that, right? You know, Coach Weaver's, you know, doing this program too. I don't just check in with him, but, you know, I'm seeing his progression too and watching his numbers, and we're kind of both going at the same rate. So it's been fun. I'm really excited to see how the spring's going to go in some of these guys.
Yeah, I know we've talked a little bit about that, how you want to get back up there and try it out. And it's been cool. And you've sent me some pictures of your little workout area. And you have a pretty legit workout area. I think it's in your garage, right?
It is.
That you're running stuff through. So you should shoot some of those to Bart so we can kind of post up there, and we you know, obviously follow your journey on, you know, on getting there. But I also want to go over, you're talking on the specialist course a little bit. Not everyone knows what that is. What are some of the things you kind of gleaned out of that? Was it worth your time to go through and take that course? Was there some cool stuff in there?
Absolutely. So Ryan, I feel like I know you now better than you know me, because I got to listen to you for like a week straight, which was good. It's like,
oh man,
but yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank God you're not my wife, dude.
Luckily, I'm not your wife either. It's good. We're good on both sides. But man, it was awesome. I loved it. It was really cool that I have. So my business partner that I work with is he's got his master's in kinesiology, and
Nice.
he was a trainer for a long time. So I got to kind of bounce off him a lot of things as far as the body goes. Like, hey, I'm feeling this, or, you know, I got a kid that's you know, explaining this is how it feels, and really just like there's kind of answers that were like kind of above my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, I get this and that, da da da. The class and the license was awesome, and I, like, regardless of price, I think it's well worth every penny, considering how much more you know about the arm and about the actual numbers that it's telling you. It's not just like, okay, this guy's IR dominant. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? How do I go? What's my plan of attack to help this guy out, to build his ER back, to get, you know, that shoulder balance back to where we're in that 0.85 or 0.80 to 1.05, sorry. And so to get in that range as far as balance, I'm explaining this to parents, and they're like, wow, I've never understood, like, you know, my brake muscles are just as important as my accelerator muscles. And it's, I talk about kind of like a car, if you've got more brakes than gas or gas than brakes, it's imbalanced. It's not going to be, at full potential. And so, talking about not just the range of motion and the strength on one side, but also saying those numbers like, hey, you're imbalanced, but here's what you're imbalanced in. And here's our plan of attack of how to kind of build back to get that where you're balanced. And then you can go out and throw and have no issues at all. So I learned a lot about the arm itself and also the kinetic chain with the body and how it works. And I thought that was awesome. It covered everything from, the mechanics and the kinetic chain to the numbers and what they mean. And also all the way at the very end of the thing where you're talking about like the spear throwing and the quadrants, talking about sleep and, anti-inflammatory, like staying hydrated and dark cherries, things of that nature that just don't exist, in random thought unless you go Googling things. And I thought that was really cool. And the whole breakdown of it was just fantastic.
So Ryan, the maraschino cherries, they're not good for inflammation.
Yeah, I know it's a lot of sugar. It's gonna add.
I've been eating those like crazy. I haven't felt any better.
No inflammation for Jordan.
No, it's a special type of cherry. Actually, it's a Montemercy, I think it's called. It's kind of hard to say for me, but it's a special cherry.
They don't pickle those.
I was just doing the cherry flavored pixie stick, so I was just pouring that in. Was that?
Not helping? Just cherry flavor.
Explains a lot of me and Bart's problems going on right now. Gout, headaches. I can't stand sunlight.
Brian, I think you're kind of a loss for words to have somebody talking about your course that way. But
I really I appreciate it. It's awesome, but like the thing is, as much as I think the course speaks volumes to coaches, if the coaches don't speak volumes about what they learn and they don't apply and share the message, the education isn't as effective as what we think, because I'm not training those kids. I'm not the one looking over the data. So we just need more people to have this heightened awareness and this greater understanding of throwing arm analytics and range of motion. And strength to really make a dent on, baseball injuries. I don't personally, it's going to sound bad. I know our companies throw fuzz, but my whole mission and research goal in life is to significantly eradicate arm injuries. I think they're 100% preventable because if you have the technology to identify when someone's sick, it's like, going in for a colonoscopy. You do it early enough, they fix you. And we need the community, such as the great people that we're speaking to now, to just propagate this message. And the more educated people are, the better. But I am flattered. I appreciate it. It's great to be able to educate great minds, and thank you for the endorsement for our company, because I really think we're doing something different.
Agreed. Yeah, I think availability is huge, and I think you guys are we're all kind of moving the same route. And I had a different one, before, and then jumping on this, it's been a lot of fun for me because we both, I think, at the end of the day, we have the same goal, and that's to make create health. Not just longevity and lessons and plans and all this stuff, but, overall health for those kids to be, available, because that's the best thing you can be for yourself and for the team. And so I think that, it kind of backs in that, which is awesome. It's been cool.
Yep.
So Tommy, is USA Prime Virginia, are you guys growing? Are you adding teams? What's happening there?
Yeah. So we started the Virginia group in 2020. And we've seen huge growth since then. It's been awesome. We've got, I want to say 6 teams, I believe, 6 or 7 teams in the spring. And then we've got another 6 teams, I believe, for the summer signed up already for that too. And our fall last year, this previous fall, we had the most we've ever had come out. So that's, always wanting to innovate and be better, not just grow the program itself, but also, the program itself gets better, not just the talent of the kids, but the organization itself, because, we want to innovate and do better things. If we just stick to the same regiment over and over and over, it gets a little monotonous. And I think innovate, innovate or fall away is kind of the route that, you got to stay focused on. And I think innovating and you guys created kind of a way to innovate for me and to build my knowledge and to help the organization out. And so I think it's been fun to, now see the growth that we're going to see off of this, you know, getting kids committed to college. We've had some commits here recently. And then also some, you know, some arm care stuff where you're seeing velo increases, you're seeing more strikes, you're seeing, you know, better quality coming out of the organization itself. Instead of having kids that you have Tommy John surgery, you got kids, you know, bumping their velo up and throwing more often for their high schools and for their summer ball teams. And so that's the ultimate goal. And so we've seen huge growth since then. And we hope to continue to grow and do the right things for that.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, I appreciate you joining us. I think this has been a good one. I'll put make sure I got links to USA Prime Virginia, you know, wherever we put this up. And you guys, anything else you want to say, Jordan, Ryan?
Nothing.
No, it's great.
All right. Appreciate it, Tommy. Thank you.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.